Hello, my name is Omar Abasad. It is 8:08 p.m., July 31st, 2020. So I tweeted a bunch of tweets today that talked about, commented about what's going on around the building. So as I said before, there is a push to get me out of the building, and it's ongoing. So it's escalated to the point where um, just about everybody who comes in the loading dock talks about this extremely loudly, and it's just very, very abusive. So I have, as it escalated, I've escalated my tweets as well. So that's what that was about. Those tweets from ROSHI and I911, those were mine. So this is the thermometer I have in front of me. It's 25 degrees right now. It is right there. I am being canned, as I indicated in my tweets. There are microwave technology around in the building, outside the building, of course, outside the building, with the cell towers and so on. But there are antennas around my unit, as I said before, that I use to direct and focus beams into my unit. So, which are this is openly talked about outside the window, just openly talked about. We're going to turn up the power tonight. It's going to be ripped tonight. It's going to be scammed tonight. And all these rich men who offered me jobs and kept me for a couple of weeks and then fired me. So what happened was they got the contract. They observed, made reports, got contracts, made additional reports, flagged me, then fired me and kept the contract. This is what the Chinese traffickers outside the window they are openly talking about this. So, as I said, my chest is tagged because I heard that the account is global. And this is all just a variation of the number of ways, just one variation of the number of ways that women my mouth's not working, that women and kids are being trafficked. Just one of the many, many, many ways. So it's gone remote, and robotics and remote technologies are easily available. And are being used. And because the police, not all of them, some of them, in all the right places, are taking part in it, the military, all these organizations, these policing organizations are all infiltrated by these traffickers, and they're all taking part in it. Nobody's doing anything about it. And they're coming down hard on the people who are exposing what's going on. So I'm going to, I'm looking for my other detector, and I don't have it here. So I'm going to take my blood pressure. My face and my throat was just bombarded with signals last night, and my chest. And I heard this morning that strep was put in. So my chest, my obliques, my back was just bombarded with signals that was turned up at a very high power. I was scanned very, very often, maybe around once every 5 minutes or so. And just burning, just my skin was just burning. So the temperature around my body, 25.5. So I'm just going to take the other thermometer. And this is in Fahrenheit, 75.9. So I'm going to take my pressure. Signals around my body. Oh, the time on this is incorrect. I should change that. But the temperature is correct. So 75.9. So 75.9 to Celsius is 24.38. Oh, just went up to 77.2. So 77.2 is 25.08 Celsius. So it's correct. So 25, well, very close, I should say. 25.5. So it went up to 79.0. So it would seem that this one here goes up in increments of maybe 1 degree. And this gives you a breakdown on a smaller scale. So right now it's 79. So my pressure went 124 over 77. My temperature seventy 37.4. 37.4. Forehead 36.6. So I do not have a fever. My back and my chest is being pulsed. So the underarm temperature is higher. So the temperature around my body, 80. So the technologies that I'm talking about are remote, that is being used to harass, rape, torture. So it prompted me to what's going on in the building and also what's going on under COVID-19. People are talking about drones and robotics and being used more and more in the future. And also, I had a tweet that talked about the suggestion that we not only wear masks, but wear goggles. So you can imagine, right? Our entire face covered, mask, goggles, gloves. Are we going to be looking like human beings? I mean, this is people keep pushing this COVID-19 fear further and further and further, and pushing the limits further and further as to and trying to see how much we're going to absorb and how much we're going to conform. So, from what I read, the facts are we don't know much about, we don't know everything, I should say, about COVID-19, the virus. Some people are saying that there could be vaccines that will help. Some people are saying that the vaccines are not going to, if and when they come about, not going to give you permanent immunity. You're going to need booster shots. There are all kinds of vaccines. There are plant-based vaccines. There is RNA messenger-based vaccines, genetically based. There is animal-based vaccines. I heard insects, antibodies, that are using some sort of derivative of insects to create antibodies in our bodies. In all kinds of variation of vaccines, right? So there's a huge question mark about the vaccines and how effective they are. So there's a whole lot of question marks associated with this whole COVID-19 scenario, pandemic. That begs the question, why was the economy shut down? Why is it that in the first place, people were not asked to wear masks and goggles and keep the economy running? Why shut down everything? And so many people died, and so many people lost their business, and people were shuttered in their homes, and there's so many suicides, and all the elective surgeries and important surgeries, not only elective ones, were stopped, and people weren't going to the hospitals out of fear. This huge fear campaign based on something that there are so many question marks around. What seemed to be clear is that this virus can spread very easily, but so can the flu. So there's nothing unusual about that. And why is it? My question is, why is it that we are concentrating on the infection rate rather than the mortality rate and the hospitalization rate? It seemed to me that the mortality rate, if you discount the older people who were not taken care of, and probably not of COVID, but of complications of other things. If you take that away, that number away, the numbers were comparable to the cold. And some doctors came out and said that people die of pneumonia, just common pneumonia. There's more people dying of common pneumonia than of this virus. So why all the hype? Why all the hype? So the fallout of the hype and the fear factor is people being afraid of being with each other, but being with other human beings. And we're being taught, trained by the government, who are listening to professionals, quote unquote professionals, who work for the government, who wants to be in power. We're being trained to stay in our circle. There are circles in the park. There are steps in the store telling you where to stand. We are being trained like infants, how to walk, how to talk, cover our mouths, wear masks, wear goggles, wear gloves. stay in our circle, 10, now it's 50. And COVID-19 is never going to go away. It's never going to go away. So the temperature went up to 26. I'm just going to interrupt myself here. And on this thermometer is 79.7. It went up to 80. It dropped. So it would seem to me that this whole pandemic, I would say a created pandemic, man-made pandemic, is to usher in the world of robots. You know, our old people died, and people and their family could not be there. People are having babies, and their family can't be there. So the end of life, start of life, no emotional bonds. The bonds are broken. So it would seem to me that this whole thing, this whole operation, is to usher in the age of robots. We are being trained to deal with robots, and we are being trained to behave like robots, no emotional bonds. So I just plugged in just one little phrase in Google, the future of robots in our lives. And I came up with an article. I just plugged it in a few minutes ago. So this is on the website waypointrobotics.com. Does our future depend on elder care robots? So this is by Jason Walker, CEO and co-founder of Waypoint Robotics, I imagine. Yeah, that's the company's name. So it says, just going to read it, and I'm going to skip a few paragraphs because I don't want to go into too much detail, but just to make the point, right? So imagine a world in which our senior citizen population is taken care of, not by humans, but by fully functional autonomous mobile robots. Autonomous mobile robots. Imagine these mobile robots, also known as elder care robots, come equipped with state-of-the-art navigation, sensory and perception systems that allows them to complete tasks as simple as picking up a remote control or retrieving a pillbox, to actions as complicated as taking a person's temperature or vital signs using sophisticated facial recognition technology. Rest assured, this world in which robotic caregivers are looked upon to help with the world's growing population is very much a reality. It's not a question of if, but when. Elder care, and this comes to the way, it comes to the point of the way that older people were being not taken care of. I was going to say taken care of, but they actually were not being taken care of in the old age homes. So elder care, an issue of supply and demand. The idea behind elder care robots or robotics have been around for years. Its relevancy, however, has become increasingly more apparent as the gap between the number of available caregivers and the world's aging population continues to widen. This population problem is already very real in countries like Japan, where there will be an estimated shortage of 1 million caregivers by 2025. Wow, that's only 5 years ago. The US is facing a similar dilemma, as the percentage of people aged 65 or older is expected to rise to roughly 26% by 2050. And in COVID-19, the older people were killed off. Compounding the problem, and that's my comment, of course, compounding That's me commenting. Compounding the problem is that the cost of elder care is becoming incomprehensible and uncontrollable. While while elder care expenses vary from state to state, a national snapshot shows that the annual median cost of a private room in a nursing home is $92,378, which reflects a 1.24% increase from 2015. The percentage of older people 65 and older is expected to rise 26% by 2050, and that point is reiterated in a square here in the article. This growing financial burden, coupled with the shortage in caregivers, provides the need to find a more efficient way to care for the world's elderly population. While younger generations up until now has been tasked with serving as caregivers, the rapid rate at which the world's aging population is increasing is causing many researchers to ask what happens when there are simply too many elderly people to take care of. Apparently under COVID-19, they die. According to estimates, if you follow my tweets, the way that older people were just died in old age homes gave me a lot of reason, a lot of I thought a lot about it, let's just say. And I was affected by it because there were some tweets that I saw that came through in my feed that was very moving. And you know, the kids were saying my mommy died or my father died and I couldn't be there. And these were people in the 50s, not 60s, 70s, and 80s. So you gotta wonder. Of course, if the kids go without parents, then bring in the robots. I think there is a conspiracy behind the whole thing, obviously, from what I'm saying, right? According to estimates by AARP, there are currently about 7 people aged 45 to 65 to care for each person who's 80 or older. By 2030, that figure is expected to fall to only 4. By 2050, there will be fewer than 3 caregivers for every person under the age of 80. So how will the world solve this expected shortage of caregivers in the coming years? Robots are the future of elder care. Researchers all around the world are proactively striving to help solve this problem, blah, 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 okay? The industry is still evolving. So for example, companies like Jibo, Jibo, are leading charge to integrate social robots into our home lives. So you don't get to interact with family, you get to interact with a robot socially. Designed as an interactive companion and helper to families, Jibo is considered to be the world's first social robot for home. However, Jibo is not a mobile robot and lack the complex physical and mechanical parts that truly serve as an elder care robot. It's more of a social and emotional robot solution. That sentence just doesn't make sense to me. It's more of a social and emotional robot solution. You're having an emotional reaction or relationship, I should say, with a robot, which is contradictory. It's a contradictory statement, right? Vecna Robotics, meanwhile, is working on creating the most powerful humanoid robot in the world for military, healthcare, and other commercial purposes. The BEAR robot, which stands for Battlefield Extraction Assist Robot, is designed for military use. But its hydraulic systems and their high power density capabilities are considered prime for caregiving. And he goes through all the other robotic companies, which I assume are his competitors. Investing in the advancement of elder care robotics. In Japan, for example, companies are leading the development of humanoid solution called CareBots, which are specifically designed robots for elder care. The Japanese government is doing its part by reportedly subsidizing a large chunk of this research. In the US, similar efforts to incentivize researchers are also taking place. Not only does the National Science Foundation invest in the development of service robots, but the National Institute of Health also has been known to fund robotic initiatives to improve health and quality of life, particularly elder care robotics projects that help increase mobility in elder patients. In addition to the government, venture capitalists are also looking to invest in the elder care robotics industry. So there's a lot of interest, government, private sector. What's next for elder care robots? Well, it's not entirely certain what the future will hold in terms of elder care robotics. Ongoing industry trends indicate that future projects will involve robots capable of being interconnected with appliances and home automation, and that they're able to use the telepresence technology that allows loved ones to check in from afar. Okay. Collaboration and integration between researchers, private industry, investors, and the government will be key in the years to come. So, this is where we're headed. And I'm sure there are millions of articles like this. This is just one person who's trying to capitalize on the trend of roboticizing our society, basically. This particular article is very sad. While I know that there is a space for robots in elder care. For instance, I'm 60 years old, and if I live long enough to become physically incapacitated, okay, that's not the right way to say that. If, God forbid, I become physically incapacitated, because of course it can happen at any age, but age is a factor of if you get degenerative diseases and so on. Anyway, so however it happens, say you are physically incapacitated. I agree that the robot can play a part in helping somebody becoming more mobile. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Like, say, for instance, you're lying on a sofa or you're in bed, and you want somebody to fetch a pillbox or a glass of water or whatever it is that you need. A robot comes in really handy. A human being couldn't possibly be sitting there next to you all day, taking orders like, go fetch me a glass of water. Unless, of course, you have a private nurse who wants to do that kind of stuff. So there is a space for that kind of care. But I'm not sure that emotional and social needs can be met by robots. It's kind of like asking a computer. Well, a robot, of course, is just like a computer, of course. So does the computer satisfy you emotionally? Sure as heck doesn't satisfy me emotionally. After being on the computer for 7 hours, working or playing the stock market or doing research or looking for work, which I'm doing. So I'm on the computer all the time. 'Cause right now the economy's opened up today, so I've sent a bunch of resumes out, hopefully to work from home. Of course, which is all computerized and all the interaction is going to be virtual. So same idea. There is distance between you and the person who you're interacting with. So the person may as well, be somewhat of a robot. So this is what COVID-19 is all about, in my opinion. It's training us to get to that point. Physical distancing, we're not supposed to touch each other. Human touch is a very, very, very powerful thing. It's extremely powerful, emotionally powerful. Information is transmitted by touch. Emotional information is transmitted by touch. So if you don't, and I'm being scanned on my chest, and the temperature around me is 26.5 as I'm being scanned. And I'm going to interrupt my blur here. 37.6. That's the scan. 37.5. 37.5. 37.4. 36.7. So I don't have a fever. So yeah. So definitely the temperature around me. 2 thermometers, 81.9, 26.5. Keep in mind, this is not as accurate as this one because it goes up, I think, in increments of 0.5. So because it's not moving, the numbers are not moving, that doesn't necessarily mean that the temperature is not going up. 82. I'm going to take my pressure one more time. So yeah. So we are being trained to become robots, not to touch each other, stay away from one another. And of course, we older people, this is alien to me, completely and utterly alien. COVID-19 doesn't frighten me to the point where I don't want to touch anybody. I'm not scared to touch people. I take precautions, but we are human beings. And if we're being told that COVID-19 is going to be around forever, does that mean that we're going to be social distancing forever? That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we've had all kinds of other diseases, the plague being around, and it still is. I'm sure it's not been completely eradicated. And we've been traveling back and forth, country to country, around the world. We never had a pandemic before of this magnitude. Well, when I say this magnitude, I mean we've never taken these types of actions to curb the spread of disease on a global scale. Now, we never had the stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3 and stage 4. This is all unprecedented. So it would seem to me that there is an agenda behind it. There's definitely an agenda behind it. So yeah, so I am being scanned. So 126/87. My chest is being scanned. And my face, you notice my face is swollen. All is here. This is swollen because I've been bombarded, as I said. Even my mouth. My mouth is swollen. My lips are swollen. My throat is swollen because the power is being turned up, maximum power, as the people outside the windows say. The black people have it, and they're not joking. They mean business. Rick, 82.9. That's a scam. So we are being trained, as I said, not only to deal with robots, but to behave like them. The humanity, and this is what Satanism is all about, right? Satanism is reversal of the truth. It's the opposite: negative, positive, white, black. So Satanism is being brought in, being used to degrade us. We are not human, we are machine, just the opposite of being human, which is why the New World Order agenda is based on Satanism. And it's not, if you notice, it's not only women that are being trafficked and tortured, like what I tweet about in my case. Every possible lines of division in society is being used to split up the society or world. It's not only about race, it's about gender, it's about cultural differences, it's about how rich or poor you are. It's about how pretty or not pretty you are, or how handsome or not handsome you are, how light skin and dark skin you are, how educated or not educated you are, how tall or short you are, how fat or thin you are. Every single possible division, line of division, is being used to create friction in order to completely disintegrate our social structure, to build it back up into a pyramidal form based on Satanism. Top down pyramid, top down, all seeing, all knowing, all powerful, which is supposed to be God. Keep in mind, Satan is the opposite of God, right? So when the pyramid, the one-eye pyramid system is put into place, then the person at the top or the group at the top will be playing God, when really they're carrying on a satanic agenda, the opposite. Now, people who believe in a God will, of course, believe that this power, this entity is all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful. So we're going to have a system based on Satanism that's also going to be all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful, based on the chip and satellite tracking and data collection. And of course, it's already started. If we go to the restaurant now, and they made it a bylaw in Toronto, you go to the restaurant in a group, the restaurant owner now has to take information about the group of people for the government. Contact tracing. Contact tracing is gang stalking, is basically what it is. I talk about being gang stalked. Contact tracing is gang stalking. When there is all these rules that come out, there are people who go out and actually report people who are not social distancing. This is exactly what they're doing to me. Making these reports based on lies, and then they have people following me around, lying about what I do or say. So speaking of social distancing, I came across a video about technology that's being used, I believe, in China, in the workplace, that ensures that people are social distancing. Because apparently now, if you go to work and somebody doesn't social distance and you get sick, the sick person could sue the company for not enforcing social distancing. So in order to protect themselves, the company now have technology that is tracking each employee, and the tracking program has a circle around the person. And when the circle intersects, there's an alarm that goes off on the computer that's tracking the person. So the employer knows who is not social distancing. Very, very interesting concept. So now when you go to work in a workplace, you don't only have to worry about getting your work done. You have to worry about social distancing and wearing a mask 7, 8 hours a day in an enclosed environment in which the air is circulating. It would seem to me it would make more sense to put an air sanitizer, a filter in the air, in the ventilation system, rather than have people wear masks. That would make more sense, right? But yeah, so the social distancing and all these rules and regulations that's been put in place makes the workplace and the poor employers who are trying to make a buck at the end of the day, a profit, it makes them more vulnerable to being sued. So they're coming up with all kinds of technologies to avoid that from happening, which will take away some of the employees' rights, like not to be tracked. You have a right not to be tracked. But again, one of the many, many, many changes that's going to come in place as this COVID-19 agenda is pushed, and the young people in schools are being trained into the system, the new system, which is, of course, satanic. Anyway, talk to you another time. Hopefully, I mean, obviously, I'm not going to be around to live in the system. In 20 years, it's going to be a different world. In 20 years, I'll be 80. So I'll probably have a robot looking after me, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. In 20 years, you're going to have all kinds of dehumanizing practices that's going to be accepted. It's going to be the norm. It's going to be our new normal. It's not the world I was born into, and it's definitely not the world I want to live in. That's not to say I'm going to do, I want to, that I will do anything not to live in it. Like prematurely do something to not be here. But because it's very interesting, I want to be here to see how it's going to play out. And it also, there's got to be people like me who will leave information in systems and computers and disks and so on. So when our world changes, and it will, there's absolutely no doubt that this agenda is going to happen. It's the machine era. It's predicted in all the books. It's the age of the machine. It's important that people like me stick around to leave information so that when the other generations pick up a computer and Google something, and people like myself pops up and talk about things that I'm talking about, it's important that goes on, because then it will juggle their memory, which is in your genes. Because no matter how much chips you put into a human body, you cannot replace the genes in every cell of the body. And there is information in the genes of your cells in your entire body. So these memory can be triggered. And these triggering of these memories will trigger change. So it's important for people like me and other people who value humanity and what we're capable of doing as human beings to leave information around. So it's important that we continue as long as possible. But once it changes completely, it's going to be a horrific world to live in until it self-destruct, and it will self-destruct. But we have to go through that phase. At least that's what the books predicted. And that's what, from what I can see, is probably going to happen, because that's how things go in cycles: rise and fall, rise and fall. Like civilization, they rise and fall. So this part of our existence, I was going to say progression, but really it's not progression. Progression would be to use the technology to our advantage, to sustain humanity, to enrich humanity, because the technology can do that, to make humanity better, to make quality of life better, and to retain our humanity and to enrich it. The opposite is happening. So that has to work itself out until it self-destructs, and then we're going to start a new cycle. Meanwhile, I think a lot of people are going to suffer and a lot of people are going to die. And it's going to be horrific and very, very painful. Talk to you another time.